The night on the edge of the forest was heavy with silence, broken only by the whispering of the wind and the occasional hoot of an owl. Near the wood stood an old, crumbling mud house, where a poor but kind-hearted woman sat rocking her newborn baby in a wooden cradle. Life had not been gentle with her. Her husband had died years ago of illness, and now this fragile little baby was all she had left to hold on to. Yet on that night, something unusual stirred the air. Soft footsteps echoed against the wooden door of her house. At first, she thought it might be the wind rattling branches, or perhaps a stray dog. But when she peeked out into the faint glow of the oil lamp, her heart almost stopped. A wolf stood there. Its eyes glimmered in the darkness, not with wild rage, but with a strange, pleading sadness. And it was not alone. Behind her, in the tall grass, faint movements stirred. As the woman squinted, she saw 3 tiny wolf cubs, frail and shivering with cold and hunger, under ordinary circumstances. The sudden presence, but tonight, what she witnessed was not ferocity. It was desperation. The mother wolf crouched low, pressing her body close to the earth, almost bowing down before the human, as though begging for mercy for her young ones. The woman's heart wrestled with both fear and compassion. She turned her gaze back to her own baby, peacefully asleep inside the cradle, his small chest rising and falling like a fragile flame against the wind. Then she looked again at the wolf. There was no menace in those amber eyes, no hint of predatory hunger, only the silent cry of a mother who could no longer bear to see her cubs suffer. And that bond transcended all boundaries. She understood in her soul what it meant to fight for the survival of a child. Still, her mind whispered warnings. Villagers often told tales of wolves, how quickly they could turn, how trust in them was foolish, how one moment of pity could lead to tragedy. Her trembling hands clutched the cradle tighter, imagining the wolf leaping forward, tearing her baby from her arms. But even as fear coursed through her veins, something stronger rose within her, empathy. Gathering her courage, she picked up a piece of bread left over from dinner and a small bottle of milk that she had saved for herself. She edged toward the door. To her surprise, the wolf did not growl, did not bare its teeth. Instead, it sat quietly, its head bowed low, as if saying, "I am not your enemy. I am just a mother begging for my children's lives." The woman placed the milk carefully into a clay bowl and set it just beyond the doorway. For a long, tense moment, the wolf cubs hesitated, their tiny paws scratching at the dirt nervously. Then, one by one, they crept forward, first sniffing, then tasting, and finally drinking with desperate gulps. Their fragile bodies trembled less, their faint whines softening into the sounds of relief. Watching this, tears welled in the woman's eyes. She was no longer seeing wild beasts at her door. She was seeing children, helpless, starving, and innocent. Her baby stirred in the cradle behind her, letting out a soft cry, and the sound caused the mother wolf to lift her head. Their eyes met to the half-open door. 2 mothers from 2 different worlds, sharing a silent conversation of pain, survival, and sacrifice. It was as if the forest itself had orchestrated this moment, weaving together their stories in the fragile light of that night. The woman slowly stepped back, watching as the cubs licked every drop of milk from the bowl. Their tiny bodies curled against each other afterward, eyes half shut in drowsy comfort. The mother wolf, however, did not touch the food. She only glanced at her young ones, then back at the woman, as if to say, "It is not for me, it is for them." That single gesture pierced the woman's heart even deeper. Here was a creature often painted as ruthless and bloodthirsty, yet she carried the same scars, the same unspoken vows that any mother bore, to starve so her children might live. The woman turned her gaze once more to her baby boy, who had begun fussing in his cradle. She picked him up gently, rocking him against her shoulder. His tiny hands reached out unknowingly, grasping the air. For a fleeting moment, she imagined the wolf cubs in his place, imagined what it would feel like to watch them fade away into weakness. Helpless to stop it, she shuddered at the thought. Stepping again toward the threshold, she tore the remaining bread into small pieces and placed them outside. The cubs, though timid, ate quickly. The mother wolf made no move toward the food. She only remained still, crouched low, her eyes never leaving the human child now resting in the woman's arms. And then it happened. The baby let out a soft, innocent laugh, his small face lighting up with joy as if he had somehow understood the moment. The sound was pure, untainted, and it startled the wolf. She tilted her head, ears pricked, staring at the child not as prey, but as something sacred. The woman's breath caught in her throat. Could it be that her baby's laughter had reached across the invisible wall between species? The wolf gave a low whimper, not a threat but submission, and slowly lowered her head to the ground. Tears stung the woman's eyes. She had never felt the weight of such an unspoken bond before. Her baby, innocent and unknowing, had done what no words could do. He had soothed the heart of a wolf. The woman stood frozen in that fragile silence, her baby's soft laughter still echoing in the air. Outside, the wolf did not move for several breaths, her body trembling as though caught between instinct and something far greater. Then, with deliberate slowness, she nudged one of her cubs closer to the doorway. The tiny creature stumbled forward, its paws slipping against the dirt floor, until it was almost inside the threshold of the home. The woman's heart pounded. Every story she had heard about wolves screamed at her to shut the door, to protect her child. Yet her arms tightened around her baby, not in fear, but in recognition. She saw the cub not as a threat, but as another helpless infant reaching toward warmth. Without thinking, she crouched low, allowing her baby's tiny hand to brush against the cub's fur. For a heartbeat, time itself seemed to stop. The cub blinked, then licked the baby's fingers with a clumsy tongue. The baby squealed with joy, his laughter ringing louder, purer. Tears blurred the woman's vision. She had not planned for this moment, but it unfolded with such raw truth that she could not deny it. A human child and a wolf cub, two lives that should have been divided by fear, were instead united by innocence. The mother wolf let out a deep, low sound, almost like a sigh of relief. She stepped closer now, though still careful, her eyes never leaving the baby in the woman's arms. Not once did she bare her teeth, not once did she show aggression. Instead, she seemed to understand. The woman, with her trembling hands, offered another piece of bread toward the cub. The wolf made no move to eat, but gently pushed her other cubs forward with her nose, ensuring they too tasted the gift of survival. It was as if she was entrusting her most precious treasures to the stranger standing in the doorway. The woman realized then that trust had been exchanged, not in words, not in promises, but in the quiet language of mothers. In that moment, the little house on the edge of the forest no longer felt like a fragile shelter of clay and wood. It became a sanctuary, where fear gave way to compassion, where enemies became family, where a baby's laugh had the power to heal the wounds of the wild. The woman clutched her son closer, overwhelmed with gratitude and awe. She whispered softly, "You've given him hope, my child." And as she spoke, she noticed something she would never forget. The mother wolf's eyes glistened with tears, reflecting the same love and pain she herself carried in her heart. Dawn began to creep across the horizon, washing the forest in pale hues of gold and silver. The woman stood in the doorway, still holding her baby, as the first light touched the weary face of the mother wolf. The cubs, now fed and comforted, huddled close to their mother's side. For a long time, no one moved. It was as if the rising sun had frozen them in a sacred portrait. The human mother and her child on one side, the wolf mother and her cubs on the other, two worlds meeting in peace. At last, the wolf rose to her feet. She did not lunge, did not snarl, did not threaten. Instead, she stepped back slowly, her head lowered in silent respect. Her cubs followed, stumbling on shaky legs, but not before one of them turned his head and gave a small, almost playful yelp, as though saying farewell. The woman's heart ached with a strange sweetness. She felt she had just witnessed something holy, something that defied the harsh rules of survival. She looked down at her baby, who gurgled softly in her arms, his tiny face glowing in the sunlight. Tears streamed down her cheeks. "You brought peace tonight, my son," she whispered. "You touched a wild heart." The wolf lingered at the edge of the clearing, her golden eyes fixed on the woman for one final moment. Then, with a low, mournful howl that echoed through the trees, she disappeared into the forest with her cubs. The sound was not hunger or rage. It was of gratitude. The woman knew she might never see them again, yet she also knew their spirits would remain bound together forever. Her child had not only soothed the hunger of starving cubs, but had healed the unseen wound between human and beast. And somewhere deep in the forest, the wolf curled her body around her cubs, their bellies finally full, their small breasts steady. Her heart no longer carried only fear of the world, but also the memory of a human child's laughter, a sound that had given her faith again. Two mothers, two worlds, bound by the same eternal truth. A child's innocence has the power to heal wounds no sword or shield ever could. And that truth left everyone, in the home, in the forest, and in the heart of the one who remembers, in tears.